Welcome, everybody, to the C Suite Sherpa Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Marshall, where we focus on great resources for the C Suite. Speaking of which, we have a great resource here today, Bill Douglas with OpticWise. So, Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a
Um,
pleasure
so,
to be here.
yeah, absolute pleasure to have you. Tell us about OpticWise and who you work with and what you do.
OpticWise, we focus on data and digital infrastructures and basically digital transformation solutions specifically for the commercial real estate market. You think of a large rental property, it could be a hotel, it could be an office building, an apartment building, senior living, student housing. Those are the typical verticals we see. They're not very technologically advanced. Buildings might look really nice, but they operate, most of them, really sloppily in the background. And we focus on earning the property more money and saving expenses for all the tenants, making their life more pleasurable with smart, intelligent buildings.
Yeah, I'm curious because it is a niche business. How did you get started? What got you into that business?
Well, you and I have both coached executives before, and I had a client. The client was named OpticWise, and I took them on and gave them a go-to-market plan and did some executive strategy sessions. And they came back and said, we can't do this. Would you like to? And I made the consultant's mistake and fell in love with the business model because it's the largest asset class in the world. It's lagging as far as technology goes. It's old and stale. The younger people and the women are actually changing the industry, not the old men that the country club owners. The ones that are delegating it are making positive changes, and the other ones are just watching it happen. So I took on that challenge. I've always applied technology to large industries and used it to make things run better. I'm an engineer in mind. Went to Georgia Tech and MIT, and I like to solve big problems, and this just fit all of that. And that was 8 years ago, and we have been on a nice run even through a horrible pandemic since. So I have the joy of taking it over, and I work with some amazing people, and we stay in our own lane and don't overlap. I know enough about the technology, but I don't run it. I can help dream it up, and then we can get the right resources to make it work. Most of the time, dreaming it up comes around listening to our clients. There's not new ideas. They just tell us what they need. If we can solve it, we put a solution to it, and then we sell it to the whole portfolio of customers. So I really like what we do. I like the accountability culture. It's a great place, and we've done some phenomenal stuff behind the scenes for properties all over the country. So it's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great. I spent a lot of time in real estate when I retired after I sold the company, and of course, we all know retirement when you're 35 is a joke. I woke up every morning thinking, what am I going to do? So I started investing in real estate and found the real estate industry was like way behind because I'm a tech guy. I came from Silicon Valley and I'm looking at this going, you do it this way? What? So
I mean,
brilliant.
Brian, the simple premise of who owns your digital infrastructure. Like, you invested $70 million to build this building and you don't own the networks in it. The vendors do. Wait a second. Like, oh, you paid for them and you don't own them. You can't use them. You think that no way that doesn't happen. Take that to the data. Who owns the data? Oh, we do. Okay, contractually own the data. Well, where is it? Physically, where is it? Could you show me the data right now? Could you access it if you needed it in real time? No,
Right.
the vendor will send us a flat file if we need it.
Right.
Oh, like when you fire them. That's all. That's when it's your building and it's your digital asset and you're not monetizing it. So that's the main problem we solve. And there's a plethora of ways to do it. You can drive revenues up, you can drive expenses down, both impact net operating income. And that's the asset value increase, not to mention the income you get every year.
It's one of the things I love about commercial real estate is you have a huge impact on what the cap rate can be, and it ultimately determines the value of the property. It's really not about comps. It's really about the income of the building and what your cap rate is.
You can impact the cap rate, and that's how the building is run.
Right.
How visible
Right.
is it? Simple things like, do you have an alarm system for a leak? In an apartment building, a leak might cost you 5 floors of damage, especially if the person in the top 2 floors is not home. But if you have a leak system, you can go to your underwriter and show them how you react to it, show them your processes, and you might save 10% on your insurance
Yeah.
premiums. It's massive.
Yeah.
And that 10% goes right to the bottom because it's already in your rent rolls. Maybe you don't have to increase it as much next year and you could maintain your 98% occupancy. How do you know how your building's performing? You wait for a vendor to tell you, or you wait till you see your P&L from last month? How come you can't see it right now? Digital transformation is a big challenge because resistance to change management is a big deal, but we don't deal with that as much as we deal with a strategy of what we're going to do and how. technically we're going to implement it. And then we might involve some other people if the culture is not right for change.
Right.
It just depends on the client. And the clients we work with, they're usually in great companies that are run really well, not dictatorial, not top down only. It's a collaborative environment. Like we do well with family offices and medium-sized corporations, and not REITs, because REITs are dictatorial and they don't let the person on the floor, on the ground, make an actual decision.
Right.
Yeah. So we just go to where the clients value us the most.
Well, it's a fascinating business model, and I'm glad to hear it because I worry about the future of commercial real estate. You see vacancy rates rising in a lot of the big cities. I wonder, are we going to see a bunch of albatrosses, shopping malls, places like that where the world has changed, but you've got real estate that no longer has a purpose? So tell me from your perspective, looking at it from the data side of things and the ability to reduce costs, what are the biggest challenges that commercial real estate owners are having? And how do you help them solve that? And I know you've talked a little bit about that, but if we could dive down deeper into that, that would be interesting.
We deal mostly in office and multifamily. So we talk about each other separate if we could. I'd probably say 80% of our business is in these two markets. Office buildings have been largely vacant for a long time. Even if they are leased, they have not been occupied. So I'm talking about physical occupancy. The Fortune 1000 started to dictate return to office RTO. The Fortune 1000 started it long before the election cycle, long before the government started saying it, because they have measured how inefficient employees are. And the good employees that they had left need to be in an office to really be productive. Like call centers and sales crews and development arms, software development, they just work better as teams in person. Like you can have a scrum over Zoom, but it's not nearly as effective as when you have a stand-up scrum in the morning.
Right.
Physically stand up, and I can lean over the cube and say, I don't get that line of code you just inserted into my patch. Like versus having to get somebody on a Zoom call and try and hack it out. So there are some things that just work better. And we are seeing a lot of our office clients, when renewals come up, their tenants are renewing, but they're renewing smaller leases. So say it's a 300,000 square foot office building, and before they had 14 tenants, now they're going to have 17 to 22. They're still maintaining their lease rates. They're seeing the occupancy, physical occupancy pick up. And our clients can tell you how many people are in a building in a day. A lot of other people can't. Like, how many people are there today? Well, it's not just an access card. How many bodies are there? These are systems that are owned by when I talk about data, I'm only talking about data from systems that are owned by an enterprise client. It's never about personal data. We do not breach privacy and will not. We will walk away from the client before we would do that. So back to the point, you're seeing more leases for the same space, but when they lease smaller, they want more common area. So we're seeing a lot of shared conference rooms. Instead of I have to build a conference room in my space, I'm going to go to a building where it's just my space, and maybe my network works over the entire building and even out in that nice common area, which is one of the solutions we love to provide. And I get to use that conference room whenever it's available, or this one or that one, or there's huddle rooms where my team can go if they need to sit out. There's a common kitchen on every floor. Those are becoming really popular. It's not co-working. It's more flex space where you're paying more premium for space. So we're seeing that become wildly popular. Co-working is actually coming back, but they are a tenant in a multi-tenant building. They no longer own the whole building. It's not that popular because the flex workspace, or whatever the other model you want to call it, there's several names for it. The client can go get those. In apartments, we are seeing tenants flock to technology-driven apartments. They want to be on their own VLAN, their own network, securely from anywhere in the property, privately. They want it to work without hardware, no matter where they are, just like their cell phone does driving down the road. But it needs to be Wi-Fi. But I want to make a Wi-Fi call as I'm walking down the hall. I want to be able to go visit you 5 floors up on the other end of the building and still be on my network.
Right.
And hold through my employer's firewall. Literally work from the pool without having to do a VPN and tunnel in. So, and they want smart thermostats and smart locks, and they want the lockers downstairs that they don't have to be there when Amazon delivers their stuff. And the companies that are doing that have very, very high occupancy at premium rates. I don't just mean market rate. It could be an A- property or B+ property. They're at premium rates for their market rate. They're full buildings at market. It's great.
There's been significant changes in the world, and it's about time that the commercial real estate's adapting to, all the different services and needs that people have. Technology is a big deal. It used to be an option. It used to be something that people fought. Now they expect it. If they don't get it, they'll go somewhere else.
The premise of space as a service comes to mind. A landlord would just have space and the tenant could do whatever they wanted inside it. Now they do space as a service. Like, let us do your technology. Apartments always almost did space as a service, but they've adapted technology into it now. Like, the second you sign your lease, you should have your gigabit Wi-Fi internet work from anywhere on the property. I haven't even moved in yet. It should work.
Right.
I should be able to add any person or any device to my domain anytime I want. I control my own domain. I don't even have to ask you, with, of course, full support if I need it. And that support is not by an ISP. It's by a real person. Right. So not, people are going to forget passwords and things like that. That's easy, but there should be no issue. Like, why isn't this part of the rent? Same thing in an office. When my employees leave my space, the cool office space we rented for our company, why do they have to go to the common area and get on common area Wi-Fi and VPN back in when they can see my office? Like, why doesn't my network just work out there? Those networks that run that, the physical digital infrastructure, is the same infrastructure that's used to make the building operate better and to reduce build costs. But commercial real estate looks at all three of those islands differently, traditionally, just because it was hard or because they were run by builders or contractors or architects that didn't understand this premise, and money just bleeds out the door forever.
Yeah.
So it's better for the tenants and better for the owners.
I want to switch gears, and I want people to get to know you a little bit. So I'm going to do what's called a lightning round. I'm just going to ask you some questions, whatever comes to mind. It's always fun, may catch you by surprise. So are you ready?
Fire away.
All right, easy one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
If you can grab one item right before the zombie apocalypse starts, what would it be?
My next meal.
Favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
Oh, wow. I'd rather do than have.
Awesome. How about movie or streaming series that you'd recommend?
Movie'd be Matrix. Like, it's one of my faves.
Mine too. What a surprise. How about a book? Do you have a favorite book that you recommend?
Atlas Shrugged is probably my favorite book of all time.
Yeah, Ayn Rand, great book. Not a great movie. If you watch the movie, not so good.
The movie was horrible.
Yeah, the movie was horrible. I sat there going, if I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't even know what this is about.
Yeah, it was not the same. I actually didn't even finish the movie.
No, same here. And there was a couple of them that I just didn't even watch, but yep, great book. And how about last thing, biggest obstacle that you've ever personally had to overcome, and what's one big lesson that you took away from it?
I was laying in a hospital room paralyzed, and I had to figure out whether or not I wanted to learn to live in a wheelchair or figure out how to gain the strength to overcome that. I didn't know if I could, but I shifted my mindset and walked out of the hospital less than 2 weeks later. And when you're laying there being told you might not make it through, and if you do, your life's not going to be the same no matter what. I quit my job, went and jumped out of airplanes. I proposed all within 3 weeks of that. I started a company. Like, nothing mattered that I thought mattered. It level set everything.
Great song that I still have a hard time keeping it together when I hear Tim McGraw's "Live Like You're Dying." If you haven't heard that song, listen to it.
It's very accurate. It's very accurate.
Well, Bill, it's been,
you see for a week.
It has been awesome.
Near-death experience,
Yeah, and the journey of life is, I think, way more interesting in business. I mean, someday I'm going to do a podcast around life experiences. I'd love to have you as a guest. I mean, you're a fascinating guy.
I've had a couple of crazy ones, and I've lived with MS half my life. So
yeah. Well, we're out of time.
I'd rather do something than have something. I don't believe in owning something. I believe in experiences. It's a value driver in my life.
Yeah, people don't remember all their stuff on their deathbed. They just remember the memories and the experiences that they created and the relationships. So great lessons. Bill, loved having you on the podcast. Appreciate you being here. One last thing. If people want to reach out to you, they've got somebody that they know that could use your help. What's the best way to reach you?
Personally, it would be resilienceguy.com. But professionally, the real estate, OpticWise, spelled OpticWise.com.
Okay. We'll post that in the description on our YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this, you didn't get that, don't worry. Check the description. All of Bill's contact information is there.
Yeah, Bruce Ann does all our socials. I'm sure you could find us if you need to, but would love to help anybody out there that would like to make more money in commercial real estate or find a better way to live. I do coach people on the side just for fun.
Well, that's awesome.
I work because it enables me to have the lifestyle I want. And I love work. Don't get me wrong, but I don't live to work.
Love work, but life is the most important part of that, right? Work is not life.
I share that. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, great to have you. Look forward to talking to you more in the future. And thanks for being on the podcast.
Likewise. Thanks again for having me, Brian.
My pleasure.